It is the Anfield Wrap. Neil Atkinson here after Luton Town 1, Liverpool 1. I'm joined by Neil Jones, Andy Heaton and Ian Salmon. But before then, for this season, the Anfield Wrap is sponsored by Green King Sport, where football is more than a game. Green King Sport venues are showing every televised Liverpool fixture over the course of the season. So instead of using a dodgy stream, get yourself and your friends, because friends are important, to your local Green King pub and get closer to the action. This season, on Instagram, there is the Green King Sport Instagram page, which has got loads of fan content. It's got deals and it'll have competitions through the season. They've already given away Champions League final tickets, it says here, and signed shirts, so you don't want to miss out. Follow them on Instagram and you'll be the first to know about all of this, and you'll be helping the Anfield Wrap. The Anfield Wrap is on tour. If you go to theanfieldwrap.com/TAW live, you will be able to find their ticket sales for on Wednesday the 15th of November, Chicago, 16th Vancouver, 17th Los Angeles, 18th Phoenix, 19th Austin, 20th Atlanta. So that is all coming up. If you're in any of those places or near them in the United States, I respect it's a big country, you know, you just commute and you just travel around and all that sort of stuff. We will be there in all of those places across the 15th to the 20th in North America. Okay then, Luton Town 1, Liverpool 1. The ultimate part of this, Neil Jones, is that these results will do you in if you want the big thing. That said, it was not the same as the way Liverpool got themselves done in games such as these against the bottom 10 away from home last season. You've got to differentiate. I think it's important to differentiate. Simultaneously, though, you shouldn't be dropping points here.
No, I mean, they put the stat up on Sky before the game. They needed the bottom 12 last season. It was 3 wins. I think it was 6 where they'd failed to score. And you looked at that, and to be honest, you do your analysis pieces, and I had sort of, you have little headlines sort of half written before the game. You think, okay, that might be something that comes up, and one of them was like, lessons learned from last season. I didn't expect Liverpool to do what they did last season and drop points. Certainly not fail to score, but it was different. I mean, it didn't remind me of the Forest game that they lost early in the season, because I think that was a strange one where if it sort of felt like even when you looked at the team in that game, you thought they might struggle here. Liverpool, I sort of had a feeling they'd struggle. The Bournemouth game, I almost knew they wouldn't win. I don't know why, but it was just the way the team was at that time. They'd just beaten United 7-0. So I didn't really see this one coming. I couldn't look at it and say, wow, yeah, well, this was always inevitable. I know Andy on Friday sort of made the point that it could be one of those games where if you don't take your chances, you could end up in trouble last 10. But this to me is a lot more easy to write off as just a collective sort of fuzz of poor finishing, as opposed to more evidence that Liverpool aren't equipped. And I thought some of the discourse around it about the sort of need for a hold midfielder, for example, I don't think this game is anything for that. I don't think this has any bearing on that idea, because I don't think playing Fabinho in this game helps Liverpool win it. I think finishing your chances does, and having your quality players show more quality does.
We'll come back onto individuals in a second. Neil, I'll go to you back on this first. This is the key question for me, and I've just done Bacon Butty, one of our video shows with John, and I think the proof of the pudding on it will be in future games. They've gone to Wolves and won, having been 1-0 down at half-time. It's worth pointing that out. The key question for me is whether or not it is one of them, which you are going to have once or twice a season. City dropped points in games against the bottom 10 twice last season, so there is a little bit of wiggle room there. Arsenal 5 times. You're going to have one of them from time to time, but it's whether or not this is one of them or whether or not it does speak to issues. And I think that's and at the minute, I almost feel like it's almost a bit too early to tell, if you see what I mean. But Liverpool need it to be one of them, don't they?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, but again, I go back to Spurs. I watched Spurs play Luton. It wasn't dissimilar. Spurs missed a lot of chances. Nicked one. That was the difference. They nicked one with the centre-back come forward and finished one off and scored. But Son, Maddison, Richarlison missed loads of chances, and it was like, oh god, they had a man sent off. Luton had a goal disallowed for the VAR, so that could easily, it was a very similar sort of type of game in that one.
City at Sheffield United.
Yeah, exactly. Nick one. City at Wolves, sort of dominant but get done on the counter. So there's enough in it to say that, look, these things are going to happen against even teams that we've sort of all written off and said, oh, they're going down, probably going to finish in the bottom 3, bottom 5. I think the issues it speaks to is a little bit the ones that I would be concerned with. Take the finishing out of it a little bit, because I think they'll take the chance on another day. is I think they did lose their heads in the second half, and they started doing silly things when you just wanted Liverpool to show a little bit more certainty and start to actually turn the screw. You know, I think of Trent bashing one over from 40 yards. I think of, you know, some of the short corner that McAllister ends up getting booked for, and you think, what's that about? You know, I think Canate and Trent getting done, both of them when they should stop Benny when he sets up the chance. There was just a few signs that they got frustrated, they got annoyed with the game, and you'd want to see Liverpool a little bit more sort of calm and secure in themselves.
So Ian, this is how it's different to last season's issues. They don't concede early. They never gave up through the game. They never gave the body language of the fact that, oh, this is just going to become too hard for us today, which I think in a couple of those games Neil's mentioned, Bournemouth being arguably the prime example, that didn't happen. They controlled much of the game, which again I don't think happens on the road at times last season. And they continually created chances through the game. They didn't have a spate of chances and then nothing for an extended period. They were quite consistently I don't think they're great for the 20 minutes after half time, don't get me wrong, but they were quite consistently creating chances. That's how it was different from last season. But in terms of where it was the same, they concede in transition. They still concede first, even if it's later. As Neil's alluded to, poor performances and decision making. They were vulnerable down the flanks, and all of that leads to people being able to say, well, have they learned the lessons of last season? You can understand why that's a live conversation at this point. It's reasonable, I think it's a live conversation.
I think it's a massively reasonable conversation. I do think yesterday is more sort of one that's annoying, irritating, infuriating, rather than it being a trend. Possibly the only trend that points to in there is Darwin not converting easy chances, which kind of needs to be sorted. I think our decision making in the first half was appalling. We were trying to be too intricate on every single move that we made. We were trying to score the perfect goal, trying to thread it through holes. But at the same time, Darwin could have scored 5 goals in the first 20 minutes. So it's kind of, it doesn't feel like that's necessarily something that's going to reflect through the season. And I thought we're going to get to half time, we're going to make changes because you'll get them in at half time, you'll change the decision making process, and we do because we push both Gravenberch and Szoboszlai further wide to actually widen the pitch a bit more than we had in the first half. But then, as you said, the first 20 minutes, nothing happens at all until we start getting back in the game. But it's the decision-making process all the way through that first half that really lets us down. We could have and should have had the game done and dusted by half-time. We should be going to Luton. We should be steamrolling them. No disrespect to Luton. All the disrespect in the world to Luton in part. But we should be going there and we should be beating them. It shouldn't even be a question. There shouldn't be a conversation about it. And the way we play the first half hour, we should have them. But after that, our decision-making has to be better. We have to accept that we will have those chances again and not start rushing things.
Decision-making, Andy, I think is interesting. I take Ian's point around intricacies in the first half, but I also take Neil's point around direct stupidities in the second, if we're honest about it. People shouldn't be having 40-yard sighters. I just don't think it progresses anything from a Liverpool point of view, and I think it puts a message out that this is what it's going to take today, rather than the idea of, we've got this, lads, we've got this. I think it's worth remembering it's still a bit of a new team. It's still a team finding itself. I think you can, if it wasn't for last year's experience, I think we'd be able to find that message a little cleaner in this on the whole. But I will say again, it was a remarkably frustrating game of football in the end.
Well, you can't have it both ways, can you? I mean, I understand what Ian's saying about trying to be too intricate.
And then not intricate enough.
But then not. And you talk about the intricacy. I think it's not so much the intricacy, it's the patience of it. I was sat watching the game with you, and in the build-up to Darwin's first chance where he takes the first touch and hits the bar, about 15 seconds before he takes the shot, I turned around and said to you, here we go. Because what Liverpool were doing, they were just knocking around the back, backwards and forwards, 5, 10, 15 yards, and you could see Luton slowly going, right, okay, we're gonna go. The minute they push on, Trent's gone to the far right-hand side, and Virgil picks him out. And you can see exactly what Liverpool have done. They were playing on the left-hand side of the pitch. It wasn't just knocking it around everywhere. They drew them over to the left-hand side of the pitch, so you can get that ball over to Trent. And before Trent even gets the ball to feet, you know what's coming next. And that is patience. It isn't intricacy per se. But that's sticking. And then they don't score. And then they miss a couple of more chances. And they do get a bit ragged. You mentioned the Forest game and a couple of games last season. We never looked like we were going to win them from the first 5 minutes. Now, this is a game where if Liverpool score, I'm not making excuses. I think Luton were good for the draw. But it's one of them where Liverpool score in the first 10, 15, 20. You know, you're looking at a 3 and 4. And that isn't me trying to cry it in. You know, that's it. And I say Liverpool could score 3 and 4, but while still not playing anywhere near as well as what they can do. And then the chances they were, so I will bring him back in, but we looked at, I mean, people talk about the XG, and I know Sky had one on the screen. You see, we've just been railed down a bit because people have had a look at it properly and all that kind of stuff. But that Darwin chance aside, none of them I would think are Liverpool chances. And then that speaks to me of the impatience of just trying to kitchen sink it a little bit. Too many crosses, almost playing into what Luton want them to do. Whereas I think if they had stuck to the game plan and been patient a little bit, we might not be talking about a 1-1 draw now.
And I agree with all of that. I think we could have scored 3 or 4 quite easily. As I said, we could have been 3 or 4 up by the 20-minute mark very, very easily. And the fact that we didn't, I think my issue with the intricacy is the intricacy on the edge of the box, where we were determined to thread that final ball through. And the final ball decision was wrong pretty much every time. But we abandoned that completely and go for bombardment afterwards. We didn't go for a balance between the two. And that'd be my big issue. I'm sound with the patience at the back and drawing them out because you could see them moving because they were determined to sit as deep as possible.
But then Luton decide they're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And then just
at the point where he goes 5 and 5.
Yeah, and then they just says, and for all that the intricacy, and I'm not arguing with you. It's just as I saw it, we do get in a few times that way. I mean, Jota for instance, there was a couple there where it just broke. The bounce of the ball, if the ball bounces our way a couple of times, but
you sound like an idiot saying the bounce of the ball, but I'm with you. I feel as though every bounce that could have gone one way went their way, if you see what I mean. And it makes you sound pathetic and all that sort of stuff, and I understand that, but sometimes that happens when you, again, this is back to my, what is it one of them, or is it a thing? Part of what makes me this morning more than last night go, it's one of them, you get out and you move on, is feeling like every time the ball ricocheted around the box, it dropped to one of theirs to clear it.
But we won't know the answer to that until 4 or 5 games down the line. You talk about trends. Until it becomes a trend, it's not a trend. And unfortunately, you can't answer that question right now.
I think one thing that would probably annoy people a little bit is if you said Liverpool 1-1 with Luton and you come away, you go, well, who's Luton's man of the match? You go, probably the goalie, probably the centre-half, Lockyer, or one of the... I don't think that was the toughest game they'll ever have. I didn't come away from that going, I tell you what, he was heroic. One of that. I thought they played well as a team. And I thought Benny was a real good threat. Barkley, I think, actually played well. I know it won't be a popular thing to say, but I never come away and thought, I tell you what, he'll never have another game like that in his life. And often when you get a big team that falls at a club like that, you come away and go, I tell you what, Thomas Kaminski just has one of the games of his life. You sort of go,
James Collins against Suarez.
What are you supposed to do? Yeah. There's games like I've had Aït-Nouri. You've seen Aït-Nouri have games against Salah. You go,
Alan Stubbs, 1997 Anfield.
Yeah, why isn't he the greatest player in the world? But I thought Luton just played well as a team. I don't think they had any sort of players that had to really, really sort of raise it and deny Liverpool. I think the other thing, if you're talking about markers, what was everyone worried about really with Luton? That Liverpool had crumbled under the weight of a physical attack. I don't think they did. I thought Liverpool dominated the physical aspect of it. I don't recall any scares off a set piece. I don't recall any off a long throw. They got done on a counter attack, which, give them credit, that was a really good counter attack.
It's a great ball.
I think it would have undone most teams really in terms of the pattern it took. You can argue Elliott should stop it at source, and maybe a different player does stop it at source. You can maybe argue that it could have been McAllister there, but because he'd had a yellow, maybe they didn't want him there and that kind of thing. I think that really did do him in a little bit in the second half. McAllister, that yellow card, but I don't look at it from Brentford perspective next week and go, we've shown our belly there. We're gonna, that's gonna cost us down the line. I just think it's one of them where you go, fair play to Luton, they got a draw. If Darwin takes his chances, if Salah takes his chances, he had a good one in the first half, which was undervalued, where it drops to him and he absolutely slashes at it. And I think that sort of summed up his day. He had a touch in the last minute, where you think, bring it down, and he so often he does and he doesn't, and you just think that's
Wolves in 21-22. When the ball moved to him there, I was thinking Wolves 21-22, and that day's touch in the last minute injury time is absolutely inch perfect. That time it's missing. But this is why I think there's a significance to the equaliser, Neil, and I think it's there in two ways, and we can discuss both.
Sorry, I was gonna say that you might go on to talk about it, so forgive me. The difference with last season is Liverpool didn't have the bench to change it in games like this. So when Liverpool made subs at Bournemouth and Forest, you thought they've got worse. They haven't improved their chances. I thought Liverpool did have the subs to change it this time.
And it's the sub. Well, it's one of the subs who scores set up by the other sub in Elliott. And I think there's significance to that in that sporting way, in terms of the fact that it is the two subs. Also, it was interesting. My own mindset became, I just don't want to get beat here now. Like, I just think it's important not to get beat, because I think it would have felt. I've woken up today feeling better about it. Felt last night 2 dropped. What are we doing? Oh my God! I think if they'd have got beat, I think I'd still feel dreadful. I think the fact that they keep going, they get the equaliser. I think it's got massive sporting significance. It means they can all get in the car, look at each other, and go, "Wasn't great that, boys, but we build." Whereas I think that then you would be more looking at last season, 1 and 2. There's the obvious personal significance for Diaz as well.
Oh yeah, I mean the personal. We talked about it. Myself, you and Andy talked about it on Friday, didn't we, about sort of the mindset of a player and how you can never know what you're going through in a situation like that. You can never know what footballers go through a lot of the time, but with something like that, I think it's a triumph for him to be on the pitch and to have travelled. Once he was there, I was half screaming for him earlier in the game. But the manager's obviously knows better than me the sort of what he's had preparation wise, sleep and distraction and whatever. But to have that moment for him, it doesn't change anything in the widest situation, and it's not compensation for anything, but it does speak to a pretty robust character and a pretty strong mentality that he must have just to get on the pitch, but also it's a goal of desire, isn't it? That's what gets the goal. It's not a piece of unbelievable quality or sort of natural talent that just comes to him. It's something where it's like, right, do you fancy that? And he does, and he goes and gets it. And if he'd have been on his heels in that moment and sort of a little bit distracted, I don't think anyone would have sort of begrudged him it. So for him to go and score a goal like that at a time like that after a week that he's had and a period that he's had, brilliant for him. And probably a little bit even more, meaning for the team as well, isn't it? You've got a late goal, but you've also got it from your boy who's been suffering, and I think that will sort of not gloss over, but
soften the blow.
Soften the blow of a disappointing performance, definitely.
Just on the game, and yeah, the Diaz on the Diaz thing, yeah, 100%. And I think you said on Friday as well, some people maybe in situations like that, they throw themselves into the work, and it is work. It is work. But just on the game, because we were chatting during the game yesterday, had the match gone on for another 5 more minutes, then Liverpool get a winner. Yeah, I think they do. Yeah, I'm opening this up. Right. So I said to you, didn't I, used to during the game, you know what? I think this might even be one where we need to go one down on 60 as opposed to 1 down on 80. Because I just think that if we have another 5 minutes extra time there, Liverpool break the doors down, but I don't think that happens. Because as soon as and it's more to do with the opposition than Liverpool. It's a psychology thing. So Luton go 1 up, and then you peg them back. You give them something to hold on to, and then you take it away from them, and then suddenly it's like, shit, what do we do now?
Completely sapped adrenaline, just goes out the legs. I think,
am I wrong? Or
no, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
I think 2 minutes would have done it. I thought the second goal was coming.
I think that's why the Salah touch was frustrating, because you thought, hang on, this is what we do. This is
not only that, but it went out of play as well, didn't it? Yeah. It wasn't just it's sort of the air that comes out of the balloon completely, doesn't it? When that happens,
goes for a goal kick. It is
just lastly on the Diaz thing as well. One thing it does do for Liverpool, and this is from a really cynical point of view, and please don't clip this and turn it around like I'm making it something that it isn't. But it changes the story because it is Diaz who scores it. I think Neil, you alluded to it.
Well, Alisson goes out to his way post-match to talk about it.
But it also not just externally, but internally, it gives him something else to think. It gives him something else to think about.
He was amazing, Alisson. I thought that interview. He's such a good.
Well, give him what he went
human, isn't he? In sense, he's that for that human sort of a little bit like Klopp. He sort of knows the tone, knows the right tone to strike. I thought Alisson's interview was brilliant. I remember the one he did obviously after the West Brom goal, where I think he had everyone sort of a little bit emotional, didn't he, when he was talking about the support he'd had. Obviously, they've sent him out for a reason, I think, to strike that tone, and I thought his interview was fantastic.
His interview was, and it showed the significance of it, and I think that's the last word on the opening of this. It showed the significance of what it would mean to Diaz, what it means to that squad, and it gives them all a real sense of togetherness, which is the other thing I think they come off from that game there. To go back to last season, there were some games last season. I think Nottingham Forest is a good example. I remember thinking I never want to see Harvey Elliott and Fabio Carvalho on the same pitch again. No interest in that. Let that not happen from now on.
I think they probably felt the same way.
Well, I know a number of other players did as well, whereas I think this one, again, the way in which it ends up, one of the comparisons is I feel as though Liverpool are no less together today than they were 2 days ago.
I think there's been a massive sense of togetherness all week. I mean, the display of Diaz's share from Jota after he scores, it just shows. It's one of those things you don't think about. These are lads in their 20s, and their workmate, their mate, his dad has been kidnapped. I don't know anybody that's ever been through an experience like that in my life. And, if one of your workmates is going through a bad time, you feel for them. Yeah. And they've got that closeness.
And you're not at home either.
No, you're as far away as you can be.
It's not a group of lads from Bootle who are all together, and that's something that, this is like, they're from all over the world. So there's lads there who'll be thinking,
similar insecurities.
I better go home and ring my family and just tell them I love them. That you've got that kind of element to it as well.
That natural worry, and the fact that they're all clearly supporting each other. There's a massive togetherness in the team this season, and I think that is the thing that will get them through crap performances.
Does anyone have a view on the team? And what I mean by that is, anyone have a view on the Bournemouth team now in the context of this team and its issues? Because to me, Neil Jones, they looked like they lacked a bit of sharpness.
Yeah. I think the two players that you were probably referring to, I think both of them showed signs of either fatigue and or frustration in the game, Szoboszlai and Salah. And both of those two have been the sort of the benchmark really for persistence and belief in games this season. And I did think, I wasn't surprised. I would have left Szoboszlai on because of his quality, and it might have just been one moment of quality that done it. But I wasn't surprised when his number went up, because I was thinking, I think you don't think it's coming today for you. I think you feel like it's just not your day. Whether that was the Bournemouth miles in the tank, I think 76 minutes he did at Bournemouth, Salah did the full game. I did think there was definitely a sign in that.
It's also worth pointing out that they end up having to get the coach back. They don't get to use the playing.
Yeah.
All the hits of this.
Yeah.
The nature of the fact that, we were laughing at the weather, but the weather takes it out of you. Play in a placid 18-degree game at 3 p.m. versus running continually into wind, so on and so forth.
Played different roles in the game. Salah played as a number 9, so probably done a lot more without the ball in the game. I would imagine, if you looked at the stats, I'm sure he would have had fewer touches and fewer sort of dribbles and all those kind of things. Szoboszlai played on the right-hand side in the first game, so was probably a little bit more on the periphery, so you maybe lose a little bit of your sort of your enjoyment of that 90 minutes as well. But yeah, I thought those two in particular, I thought they showed a little bit of sign of physical exertion. But maybe, listen, if you go 1-0 up, maybe we're not talking about that, and we're looking at it in the second half and saying, Szoboszlai had the cigar out and was, Salah was as good as ever. But yeah, it did. Even before Luton had scored, and even before the game had finished, I was thinking, those two, they look like they're annoyed today.
I've been away for a couple of weeks, so I caught up on YouTube basically yesterday. So I don't know exactly how bad the Bournemouth conditions were, but I believe they were utterly horrendous.
They were.
And possibly as bad as anyone's ever played in, because it did appear to be an absolute hurricane going on there. Szoboszlai, I think that's the first time I've seen him be anonymous.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he was bad. He just wasn't as involved as we've normally seen him.
Yeah.
The change of position didn't make him any more involved, and it just didn't happen for him. Salah's game was off. We've seen a couple of times this season where his game's been off and then he's popped up with a goal. But yesterday that didn't look like it was going to happen. So if Thursday's taken, no, what more would it be? Wednesday. If Wednesday's I don't even know what days are anymore. I've done various weird date lines. If Wednesday's taken it out, then we won't know how important that game was, that team choice that night was, until we win the Carabao Cup. If we win the Carabao Cup, then Wednesday's was a good choice.
I don't know. I mean, it's easy to point to that, isn't it? I mean, it could just be as simple as just an off day. And a couple of players were just maybe fuzzy, if that makes sense. Because one thing this Liverpool midfield's the team has looked pin sharp. And I don't think any of them yesterday could say that about the performance. And look, all the analysis they do with Kirby now, they'll know about the physical levels and what they're capable of and what they're not. And, you know, maybe, and again, I'm actually wrong, just my opinion, I think you can look for excuses in that. And I think one thing this Liverpool side can't do this season is look for excuses. You know, look, you try and find reason and everything. I mean, that's life, not to get philosophical or anything, but, you know, another day, we talk, as Neil said, if we win this game 2-1 or 2-0 or 3-0, with the same level of performance, which isn't unfeasible given what happened, are we talking about the game against Bournemouth? I personally don't think it's a thing. I just think it was too many. Come on.
But what it does, if you do win the game 2-3-0, or you're winning the game, it gives you the chance to say, cheers for that, Mo, off you go. Whereas the way the game panned out, and because they weren't sharp, it means, well, you're going to have to do it, aren't you, to the end, or we're going to have to sacrifice in the second half and lose that quality. At least if they'd have obviously taken the chances, they'd have been able to manage all of those minutes. As it was, they sort of had to go, well, right, we're going to have to throw our eggs at it.
But you could say that whether they'd played a week ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The previous game could have been 10 days ago. I mean, how many times have we watched this Liverpool side have a 2-week break and Jürgen comes out and goes, oh yeah, we've had loads of time to prepare for this game, we're great, everyone's flying, and we've been utterly turgid. I've seen that Liverpool performance when they've had a big break, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though, the nature of who does or doesn't, who has a poor game. Ian, it is a Bosley, Salah, I think McAllister, not for the number 6 stuff, for the sharpness of the passing. For me, has a bad game. He frustrates me because I just don't think he's getting it out of his feet as quickly as you'd like. I think he's trying to force the issue 3 or 4 times in there as well, and ends up giving it away because he's trying to get Liverpool on the front foot, which is in one sense, you know, admirable. In another, you're not quite sure. Nunez can't be kept out of the action, but needs to do the thing which finishes the chances in there as well. I think both centre-halves play well in the grand scheme of things. Both centre-halves play really well, but it's you're lashing around looking for performances that looked around the level you expected these Liverpool players.
Yeah, I think McAllister is an interesting one for me because I think he might actually be a number 6. I think we might keep him as a number 6 for a very long time. I just think it's a completely different version of number 6 than we've seen before. And the bits in the first half where it was working, there was clearly that very close double pivot between him and Trent. Things were actually beginning to work a little bit. And he's a weird one because he wants to make things happen all the time. He literally wants to keep the game moving every second. Every ball has to be something that keeps the game moving. So he plays with a huge degree of risk, which makes it look like he's a little bit sloppy at times because he is going to lose the ball because he's going to take chances. He's not going to be a player, I think, that just does the slow, steady mopping up that you would expect of a Fabinho or an Endo. He's going to be constantly playing as a 6, but trying to move it forward all the time. And when it works, it could be spectacular, and it could be the next great invention that we see. But we're going to have to go through a bit of a rough patch waiting for it to happen, I think. I mean, that might all change in January if we sign Trindade, and he might then be playing as an 8 immediately. But if he does, we're playing with a wealth of 8s all of a sudden, and we're going to look absolutely fantastic. He's going to do a lot of 6s, a lot of 6 stuff. Nunez just needs to put the ball in the back of the net on the easy ones. He's fantastic. He's involved in the goal every 60 minutes, but he could be involved in the goal every 30 minutes if he puts the easy ones in.
I said to a mate of mine today, and I'm glad I said it today because it's given me this for this content, but one of my big positives about him is that it doesn't matter if he misses one because he rolls on. But I think one of the negatives is it doesn't matter if he scores one because I think there's no positive snowball effect either. It's almost like it's just a roll of the wheel every time. It isn't, you know, he's on a hot streak. I don't think he has a hot streak, Nunez. I think he just gets that many chances that eventually he scores them. It doesn't ever feel like, oh, he scored that one at Bournemouth, so that means he'll score his next 5. I think you're just going to have to get used to the fact that he's an accumulator of chances. He misses some really easy ones. He scores some really spectacular ones. And he'll score loads.
He scores the 2 at Newcastle, and then, it ends up going in the back of the net, but he hits the post against Villa when he should score, and then it ricochets off the lad. And you think, you know, for normal centre-forward parlance means that when he gets in there, he nets that one.
Exactly. He leathers one in left foot against Toulouse, and then goes around the keeper and misses the post. You know, it isn't a case of some players... I'm not saying it's better or worse, but I think someone like Jota, if he gets one, you think Jota will get 2 or 3. Whereas with Nunez, he gets one, you think he might bury this one or he might blaze it. And you know, I just think he's that kind of player at the moment. I don't know whether he'll rough them edges off. I don't know whether he actually needs to necessarily in the long term because he gets that many chances. I mean, he had 5 in the first 25 minutes, 5 shots. That's like you know, he had more shots than Luton yesterday, 9. Luton had 8. You're like, he's just going to score goals. Unfortunately, there's just going to be games where he needed to score the one that he didn't.
You know, one thing I spotted, I don't know whether it's been picked up, the obvious miss that everyone's talking about, he doesn't really react to it, right? He's just kind of like, just gets up, picks himself up. He puts a header over the bar earlier in the game, and he's furious with himself.
He's learned English, hasn't he?
I know.
No, but I just thought that was telling.
His movement for the goal that he misses is honestly his instinct. If you get Ian Wright or Alan Shearer or someone to analyse it, you go, oh my God, what a centre forward he could be, because it's. I'm watching that going, well, Mo Salah's going to head that in, so let's just watch Mo Salah head it in. He spins round with the ultimate instinct of this is for me.
I'm glad you mentioned Sheeran and Wright there, because both of them, and I said this to you, diving header. You put it in with the red. No, honestly, I know what you're saying.
I think Shearer bet he's the original one.
Well, yeah, still.
But yeah, well, that's to me. I can't kill him for it, because I just see all the good in him. I see everything. I think, do you know what? You are that close. You're that close to just being world class. And I know there was a big debate about it. There was a couple of people on Twitter in the midweek saying, "Oh, you'll never be world class," or "You can never call him world class because of the touch," or whatever else. But
that weirdo.
I'm not going there. But
I am going.
But I look at all the good, and I think you soft get. Why didn't you just put that in and shut everyone up? Because that's all you need to do at the moment in time. But I don't know whether he'll ever get to that one where he's the Ian Rush, where one decent chance is all he needs, and I think he's the one who don't need 10, but he'll get 10.
Do the tap and you get 40 goals a season.
For me, what one of the things with it is, and you've got to be careful with this because it's happened a couple of times recently when I've done my kick it into the floor thing. I think that the one thing that maybe just needs to change with him is someone's got to say, when you're within 8 yards of the goal, you haven't got to break the net. You just get it over the line. Yeah, it's fine for that to be scruffy. Like diving header, as Andy says, even goes in off his midriff. Do you know what I mean? Like there's run it in. No, he could have ran it in. He could have ran it doesn't.
I know what you mean.
And I think that there's a little bit of that with him, where you haven't got to. You haven't got
amped up.
Yeah, you haven't got.
He's often amped up,
and it's really important he is, because that's what brings all the other stuff into play. And so I think it's obviously a difficult thing to coach, but I think you're almost at the point where it's absolutely fine for it to be scruffy, because scruffies, for instance, in that instance, if that falls to Jota, it goes in, but it probably bounces before it's hit the net in some way. You know what I mean? Like it goes in, but it goes in heavy, and I think that's one of the things with them for them to think about with him.
When we signed him, though, Klopp said in one of his first interviews, one of his outstanding qualities is his calmness in front of goal. And now whether he's just took that off the goal he scored against us, look at that, he can do that.
No, I think that's
maybe
he
means the calmness, the sort of he knows he's going to get chances. He doesn't sort of go searching for it. And I know he was shooting outside the box and stuff, and maybe that was just left over from the Bournemouth game. But I do think he probably does admit that calmness of like at half time, you're right, you've missed a few chances. Did I? You know, I don't remember. Like, I'll get another one in a minute. I think maybe the calmness comes from the sort of his head never drops.
I think the flip side comparison is Owen. In that Owen would, I remember repeatedly, it's a very good Steve Graves joke, that Owen would not score in 12 and then he'd score 3 and then he'd say, and I've hit back against me critics, and Steve once said to me, no, the critics were criticising the fact that he didn't score in those games, mate, and you can't go turn back time, but then he'd score 3, then he'd score 2 the week after, 1 the week after that, maybe have a bit of a day where nothing quite falls for him, then the next game he'd get 2, then he'd get 3 again, and he'd get on this run, but then he'd get an injury or he'd get off the run, and then he wouldn't score an 8, and then he'd hit back against his critics. Whereas with Nunez, the goals are there.
I think with Owen, the big difference with someone like Owen was he did score the ones that he should score. Like, as in the one, it was almost like he was more likely to score in the 90th minute, or he was more likely to score, when he's been having a shocker in the game. You'd look at him and think that. I remember seeing him analysing his goal for United against City, and he said a lot of players would think chance. He said I never ever felt like that. I always felt like, lovely, I'll calm down. I do think Nunez maybe is still in that, like you say, the amped up bit of, come on, this is, like the wait till you chant my name sort of thing. I'm going to belt this in and I'm going to stand there in front of the away end. I think he maybe is still a little bit too amped, like, sort of emotional or a bit wild. But like you say, that wildness or that, relentlessness is what makes him such
But
a
that's
good
what I'm saying.
player.
I was half joking about the goal he scored against Liverpool, but we haven't seen that finish.
That much of it now.
That much of it. Like, I remember the ball, because the ball comes across. After that's Nunes now, you'd think, oh, he's going to... If we'd never seen that that Nunes goal against us before, and you play the tape and goes, what's Nunes going to do now? And smash it. And he doesn't. He takes the touch, brings it back across, and then slides it really calmly back in the direction it came. And we haven't seen that. So I know what you're saying about amped up, and maybe it is a little bit of that. But can you marry what you're saying?
But he was playing off the left at that point. I think he's maybe in a rhythm of getting those kind of chances quite a lot. You know, you're playing in a different team where maybe that was his stock in trade, that he's getting that sort of side for finish. He's playing, you know, he's getting all kinds of chances for Liverpool, isn't he? I was a little bit, you know, I'd have loved them to have buried that one at the bar, because it was brilliant. It would have been just one of them brilliant goals. You go, oh, look at that! How'd you stop that? You know, like that's one of them, isn't it? But again, just trying to leather it.
Yeah, hits the other side of the bar, goes in. We're all saying absolutely incredible. And he possibly just ends up directly into the away end. Just very quickly, and the subs do well. Obviously, Diaz, we've talked about that, forces it in that moment. I think Elliott does really well again from the bench.
The Elliott's ball in is excellent. I was watching it at that point. By that point, with Armati, who'd just come back in, he's a blue. And as soon as he saw Elliott came on, he said he'll do something. That people know what he's doing now. People are beginning to appreciate what he can do. So in that little pocket, that little ball over the top is absolutely perfect. It's just inviting being in the right place to head it in. And he's making a difference every time he comes on at the moment. And he's a very, very useful squad member. And still, what, 20?
20. Yeah. Looks like he watches the game. I always say this when he comes on. He looks like he's watched, or at least he's listened to Pep Linders, who said to him, all right, when you come on, I need you to get closer to Trent or Salah. He done one the other week.
He takes coaching really well,
was it Everton? Was it the Everton game when he come on?
Yeah.
And it was like Salah hadn't had the touch of the ball for maybe 10. It felt like that, you know, he sort of a little drifted. It was like, Elliot, come on. I was like, right, bang, you have the ball, and we'll just keep asking questions of it. And he's really... the first thing I ever noticed about him when he come to Liverpool in pre-season was that he just had that extra bit of quality. He didn't cross it. He crosses it to someone almost. It's like, you know, a little bit the John Barnes sort of thing of, you know, I'm not just putting it in. I'm not putting it in. I can see the run and I'm going to put it into someone, and he's got that quality about him. I think he's been brilliant this season, Harvey Elliott. I really do. I think he's really unlucky because he's sort of nailing down this half-hour sub role, isn't he, rather than being a starter. But I think if you look at the impact that he's had on games from the very first day of the season, I think he's had a really, really positive one from a Liverpool point of view.
On Elliott, Andy, as I say, you can get lost in his role in the conceded goal. It's worth saying, it's worth pointing that out. But I think the truth of it is, I think he's, every single time he comes on, he makes Liverpool brighter, he makes it zippier, he moves the ball quicker, he gets to where it needs to be, and as been said, he follows the coaching instruction. It was very clear to me, part of the thing he was asked to do there was, when the ball's here, you hold the width, and it'll create space. So you're going to go there, you're going to hold the width, and then you're going to get on it, and you might do different things, but you're going to hold the width, and that was something Liverpool needed.
Yeah, I think for a lot of such a young age, which I just referenced there, there's a calmness about him that like a clarity. That's the best way. Like a clarity. Like he's got a picture in his head of what's around him. Neil alluded to it. Them, you know, with the crossing when he's thinking 2 and 3 steps ahead, and link up play. Yeah, great, but he doesn't get caught up in the maelstrom of it all. You know, when the game's getting amped up, and he's. The half-hour sub thing is a really, really good point, because on one hand, do you want your players doing that, like coming on and affecting change, but then the other side of it, you're actually pigeonholing yourself. But no, I don't think it's any surprise that we looked more dangerous when he come on, and I think it's an example yet again. And you know, you can talk about you know, the 5 subs and all that, but you've got to use them substitutions right. And I think more often than not this season, you know, the manager has got it right specifically with Harvey Elliott. And I think as well, one thing I'd say about him as well, I think you can see sometimes when, I've watched enough football to see this, you can see when the senior members of the team are kind of babysitting a young lad. I don't get that impression with him. He's trusted. He's trusted. Mo loves him. Yeah. Mo trusts him, and I don't think for 1 second Mo's not the type of player, if he doesn't trust you, he's not going to use you.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, great. As you said, unfortunate with the goal. Could he have took a yellow? Maybe, I don't know. But then, you know, up the other end, we don't get the equaliser without him there. So fair play to him, fantastic.
Just want to talk about around the conceded goal, Neil. Before it, I think that part of why Liverpool, a number of them end up appealing for the penalty. First and foremost, I don't think it's a penalty morally in any way, shape or form. But by the new standards of if it hits your hand and your hand's a bit wild, it sort of is. Now, I just don't think it's a penalty. I want to be clear about that. I'm not asking for it. Because if that's a penalty, you're just going to enter into a world of absolute madness. But I can see why the Liverpool players do think that's nailed on, because they're the ones who are going to the seminars, they're the ones who've been told about your silhouette, they're the ones who've gone through all of this. And so I can understand why they think that.
Yeah, to be honest, so I had, when they scored, I sort of had this calmness of, this is a penalty, because I judge it on the reaction of the players, and it was universal. It was a proper, like, how have you not seen this? And when I saw the replay, I thought, actually, you know.
Well, you don't want to see them given. It's a genuine
I don't
opinion.
Think it's a penalty. I think it's what was the one that changed the rule regards that was in Newcastle and Tottenham, was it the sort of last minute? It was the one when Carey went mad on commentary and sort of said, "This is a joke, get it, ripped it up." And you know, someone had the back to the play and it just hit them under the outside, Eric Dyer. But I don't think it's a penalty. I think the one on Van Dijk with the wrestling is. And there was another one in the game, and the co-comms, the comms wasn't Carey. It was actually the commentator, Canate and Carlton Morris, and Canate got done for basically having his shirt pulled and sort of winning the battle of strength. And the referee said, the commentator said, you just can't do that, can you? If you're the defender, I was like, it was a foul by the attacker. When you're saying 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, with the Van Dijk one, I was like, well, actually, it's not, is it? Because only one of them was ever going to head that ball, and was ever trying to head that ball. The other one was trying to make a challenge to stop someone. So I thought that was far more of a chance of a penalty.
In the wider weekend context, so I want to talk about the fact the manager gets a yellow card, and they're adding up. Yellow cards on players are adding up as well, thick and fast. It's not just McAllister. You look up and down the country. Spurs have got about 5 on 4 yellows. Newcastle, I think, have now got a couple who've got themselves to 6 yellows. So I think that first and foremost, this yellow card thing, if you're going to give yellow cards out more often, we go to see the footballers, we don't go to see the referees. Is, you know, my honest sort of held thing. You go to see the footballers. But I think that that Van Dijk one, the fact that the manager ends up with the yellow for it, all the stuff around Arsenal, other bits and pieces, Wolves, who always feel as though they're getting done these days at every opportunity, poor Wolves, over and over again. This is part of why I think there's a crisis in the officiating, and I do think there is one, is that the players themselves, I think, hang on, you've got tellies now, you've got screens to watch this stuff, and you're still not giving any of this. And I think forget what I think the players think, are you all for real? And the managers think, I'm not having this. Arteta's probably going to get something off the back of what he said. Gary O'Neill might get something. Klopp's got booked. Marco Silva gets booked every other week around this. I just feel as though there is a bit of a breaking point, and it's not about, you know, I think it's interrelated with the fact that the VAR exists, but I think it's what's driving the players absolutely mad.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this was a game that VAR or the officiating played that big a part. I thought Liverpool could have had a penalty with the Van Dijk. I wouldn't have said it was a nailed on one. I think it was more of a penalty. I think the whole noise around it is creating an atmosphere around just about every game that people are waiting to go. People are waiting to explode on it. And I mean, I think a lot of the Arsenal's problems or the problems in that game would have been fixed by them just getting the first big decision of the game right, which is Kai Havertz, straight red, off you go. In the end, Newcastle got 3 players booked, including one of them who had to go off at half time because he'd had his ankle done in. I think that's it. I think there's just a general feeling around it that everything's wrong at the moment with the officiating, and that means that as soon as there's a 50-50 call, a marginal call in the stadium, from the players, from the managers, it becomes a bigger thing than it is. Maybe everyone needs to calm down a little bit, but I think mainly the decisions need to start getting right. I mean, I saw Anthony Taylor. Have you seen Anthony Taylor's penalty at Preston on Saturday?
No.
Have you seen it?
No.
Just have a look at Anthony Taylor. He was demoted to the Championship to referee Preston on Saturday, and did not cover himself in glory with the penalty decision.
I'll have a look at it.
But it was Taylor who got Jurgen booked. Have you seen the court this morning?
Fourth
official,
yeah. Because the referee was none the wiser. Anyway, there you go.
There you go. Just one other thing quick, Andy. I want to come on to the tragedy chanting point. I think it's important to speak about it, but we'll come on to that in a minute or two. I think they play well in terms of where their level is and what they're about. I think that they're well organised and the manager's got them well set up. I think they're a credit to themselves in terms of the fact that they battle for each other. They stay in there. They know they're going to suffer. I think they look knackered on 35. I think they look knackered on 60, but they keep finding a little bit more energy, and obviously the way the game's going, and it's why any goal, I think it is worth saying, whilst you could say, well, they might have got one back, it's why you genuinely feel like any goal will just sap the legs, because they had the point to hold on to, and then they had the 3 points to hold on to. But all of that said, I want to be really clear, I think that they play about as well as they can in that game to get that result, and that's worthy of respect.
Collectively, yeah. I think Neil said at the top of the show there was no like standout heroes. There wasn't, headline grabbers. They clearly had a plan. It stuck to it. They had quite a few injuries as well.
Yeah, they've got a bit of an injury crisis at the back.
Yeah, so fair play to them. They never looked panicked. They looked stretched at times, but they never looked stretched to the point where you felt like you're going to rip through them constantly. I thought in possession they were clever. They let Liverpool play in areas where...
A lot of nice little diags into the middle of the park, I thought, when they thought, we've sucked you in here and now we're going to go and we're just going to pick up the bits, and I thought that was well done.
Their outlet was down Trent's side, especially first half. They were clearly targeting that's their outball. Whether that was designed to, on one hand, get at Liverpool, but also make Trent more reluctant to maybe drift into positions that we'd like. It's weird watching a game of football when you've got a vested interest in your team compared to watching. So say if that was Luton versus Man City yesterday, and Luton are just breaking, and you sat there and you're thinking there's no real pedal here, they're just getting the ball up the pitch. But when it's happening to your team, you're like, oh shit, here we go. Listen, I think it goes back to what I said earlier about there was no, apart from the Núñez chance aside, there was no Liverpool-like chances. So they limited us to scraps, if you will, a little bit. Just a load of scraps. And I think it's weird the way games are judged and all that. And look, you XG this, XG that. I wasn't surprised when they went one up. Not through quality of play, but just their endeavour. They'd earned that. And they had a clear plan. If we get in that position, and having a plan and executing it, two different things, but they clearly had a plan for that. And they nearly got in. Alisson made the save about 10 minutes early. Not an identical situation, but
a similar one.
A similar one. So fair play. Look, if you play that game 10 times, Liverpool probably win 7
or 8.
7 or 8. And then you draw maybe the 2, and then Luton get the 1. But I think Luton would take. I think if you said to the Luton manager, he'd take those odds, and it's paid off for them. So fair play to them. I think shake hands.
Well, I think one of the key things Andy says there, Ian, is that they had a plan to get the ball up the pitch. That was through good play. It wasn't through the idea of just hitting channels, hoping Morris gets bits and pieces. They were playing through at the middle of the park. I think Nakambe and Barkley both played well. They played through the two of them. They knew how to then play from wide into central, back out wide. And I think that I'll say again, I think that's to the credit. It wasn't as simple as we're just going to hit a big man and see if we get some scraps. They had a way to get the ball up the pitch and get the ball up the pitch under control. Yeah. And I think that, as I say again, that is to the credit in terms of, let's be clear about this. This is a side that would see 17th as a massive achievement. I'd be amazed if this team finishes any higher than 16th, to be honest with you. So let's be clear that that's what we're up against. But to their manager's credit, the coach's credit, the work they've done all week, they knew how to get 60, 70 yards time to time and make sure that they managed to alleviate the pressure from the back line.
They've worked it brilliantly, and also the fact that obviously everybody tries to hit our right full-back position because they know Trent's going to be somewhere else. But they went there with knowing that their most talented player probably was going to be there and they could get the ball to him and he would be able to do something with it. They made the best of everything they've got. I don't want that to sound like damning them with faint praise because they fought and they battled, but they did it intelligently. There was no point where they looked like they were going to become a shambolic team.
Tons of industry as well.
Tons of it, yeah, absolutely. 90 minutes of hard work all the way through. Those lads are probably still goose this morning, so it is only yesterday, innit? So they probably are goose this morning. They worked brilliantly. They were set up very, very well. They're clearly coached very well. The manager's clearly got a lot of ability, and they deserved where they were.
I think again it helped in it that I talk about not having heroic performances from the goalkeeper. I think that helps you your belief in the game, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It helps your mindset. If your goalkeeper's pulling off worldies, your mindset is just 0-0. Let's get 0-0. I don't think they ever looked like they were settling for it. They were obviously a bit deep, and they had moments where they were under pressure, and Morris was feeding off scrap. But it always felt like they thought, well, we might get one. We might have half a chance at least to get up, like you say, to get up the field.
I think there's a thing on that, Neil, where I think sides are beginning to think more and more. Certainly at home, we're going to concede one. So if we've got a chance of getting anything out of the game, we need to score. Like there's not a there's I think sides when you're now playing Liverpool, City, I'd say less so Arsenal, but maybe one or two others. There's just fewer pathways to 0-0s. So you've got to accept we can't go into this thinking there's a. I think that's where, for instance. And he was never this manager when he first came to the Premier League. He then became this manager, and now he doesn't have a job. But where the Allardyces of the world, the second phase of that, when he became, we can just ruin every game. Where that's gone out of fashion, I think, is that you can't do that now. You've got to have the idea of we've got to get our goal at some point, because the idea we might be able to keep them at bay for a 1-0. That might happen, but it's easier to get a 1-0 if we go 1-0. If you sort of see what I mean, we've got to score.
I think the subs element changes that, doesn't it? The 5. So it's like, well, we can keep these out for an hour, but they probably bring on 3 world-class players after an hour, and then it's going to have to reset the game almost, isn't it? We're going to have tired legs. They obviously use the subs well. They had, I think as well, what you'd say about them is the players that you've heard of, and I know that sounds like a terrible thing, but the players that you'd say have got Premier League sort of pedigree, they showed it, didn't they? They just showed a little bit of it. Ross Barkley, like I say, Nakamba, who's played in the Premier League before, even Andros Townsend to a degree, just done the things that you'd say that's what you're in the team to
Occupied.
do. Yeah, you're in the team to show that little bit of extra, take an extra touch, play an extra pass, a bit more quality about it, and the rest of them, like you say, they played to the maximum of their ability, really, didn't they? To a collective.
Okay, now recorded after the Merseyside derby. Here's me talking to Rupert about her game 2.
Neil Atkinson here with Rupert Vyas after Liverpool have beaten Everton by 2-0. Now, this will be a bit later than that, so it's a nice reminder that Liverpool beat Everton by 2-0. Rupert and me have both just been to the game. We're very excitable, full of adrenaline. But Rupert, I've asked to speak to her about the fact that you are now the Liverpool-based ambassador for her game 2.
Yeah.
And what I want first and foremost is, let's do it one step at a time. Let's explain to people the history of her game 2, where it came from, and what its role is for football clubs across the country.
So her game 2 started May 2021, FA Cup final day, 15th of May. A viral video went out. Didn't expect such attention.
Such virality.
Yeah, but video went out. Basically, 12 women holding up signs with comments they've had, sexist and misogynistic comments they've received purely for being a female football fan. So this came about just from online abuse mainly, and just women getting fed up of this. Why are we being subject to so much abuse just for being female? We're football fans, the same as everyone else. So, 12 women, that video went out, and it just, I think, took the football world by storm. So that happened in 2021, and then fast forward a few months, first official club partnership, and their first EFL partnership was Bristol Rovers.
Yep.
And it just kind of grew from there. So we had clubs contacting us, wanting to get involved, clubs getting ambassadors then. So ambassadors, we have ambassadors for several clubs, over 100 actually in total. And so ambassadors represent their football clubs and work with clubs to sort of spread the message of her game 2 and anti-sexism.
So the spread of the message is the key part here. It is back to this idea that I completely subscribe to, which is that football should be for everyone. We should want football to be for everyone. It's an opportunity here in this instance to make football be for everyone, and now you're involved at Liverpool as well in this.
Yeah, so I joined the campaign in March 2022. A little while after, just kind of seeing how it goes, seeing if they had someone for Liverpool already. They didn't, so I kind of approached her game 2 myself. And I said, hi there, do you need a Liverpool FC ambassador? And yeah, they said yes. And I kind of got the ball rolling straight away, started speaking to Rishi at the club, head of ED&I, and just grew from there. And we built a really good relationship between her game 2 and Liverpool FC, but it didn't make it public until May this year.
So with this relationship that you built, it was about the idea of people feeling comfortable, obviously comfortable to come to the game, comfortable to point out if there's been any sort of abuse that's gone on whilst they're at the matches, because whilst it's a very online campaign, the core of it is people feeling comfortable. The football matches first and foremost. The online stuff's obviously a part of it, but football matches, we want as many women as possible to feel as though they can come, be themselves and relax.
Yeah, I think the main thing is about football matches as well, that having ambassadors, you know, I'm at the games, so people can approach me, or they can approach a steward, and kind of working with clubs on that. Like, stewards are usually like temporary contract employees, and we do have like senior staff within the club, so educating them and potentially like running some training with them, so that's part of our plans with Liverpool. But you know, being such a big club, it's hard to get the ball rolling, so that's why it took so long to get a partnership. But now, we're working together on sort of education.
And you're also an ambassador for Wales as well, is that right?
Yes, so I run Her Game 2 Cymru. I started that St David's Day this year just because, being Welsh, you know, I had to make sure that I'm doing my bit over there as well. And that's grown massively.
Can I just ask how you've got the energy? Because, you know what I mean, I'm watching Liverpool today, it's the Merseyside derby, and I'm exhausted. The idea that someone said, have another exhausting football team to deal with, it would be too much for me. I'd want to go and put my head in a bucket. So how have you got the energy for both?
It's a lot, and, you know, we do this voluntarily. We don't get paid, so I have a full-time day job, and then I'm doing the Her Game 2 stuff every minute.
And that's the case for everyone else who's there as well,
yes. Yeah, absolutely. 6 directors, over 100 ambassadors, and we're all doing this purely because we're so passionate about raising awareness of sexism and just, you know, encouraging women to get involved with football.
And you said all a good night out.
Yeah.
As I found out at the awards.
And you'll find out again this year.
Let's hope so. Let's hope it's there. You were nominated for an award at the Football Content Awards last year, and you have been again this year. Yeah,
so Her Game 2 were nominated last year, and we won Best in Women's Football, and this year we're up for Best in Women's Football again, and Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. And then I myself actually had a nomination for an individual award in ED&I.
Are you going to win?
I don't know, I hope so. I want to do a trophy shuffle at Anfield.
That's what you want to do, because it's at Anfield, the awards. Excellent stuff. By the way, just as a general question, because I'm not quite sure when this is going to go out, but this season feels so exciting, doesn't it? It really does. This is straight after the derby. They weren't great today, but they got the job done. They've got so many points at the stage of the campaign. For me, I'm unbelievably excited by this Liverpool side. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, Jurgen said it a few weeks ago, Liverpool 2.0, and that's what it is. You know, we've got this new era now. We've got Szoboszlai, we've got Darwin Núñez, you know, coming into their own and just taking over the squad. And that derby is excellent. You know, it wasn't what we wanted originally. I think, like, you know, I would have liked to have been 2-0 up at half time.
Absolutely.
I would have liked those penalties we should have got, but we scraped the win, and that's what a Premier League winning side does.
There we are. That's what it does. That's what Rupert does as well. That's what Her Game 2 does. Thank you very much for listening. See you later.
Great stuff from Rupert. Marvellous for her to come and do that after the Merseyside derby. Neil, just very quickly on the women's team. It's a great win yesterday, and there's an importance to putting those points in now against sides like Leicester for Matt Beard's side, because there's difficult games on the horizon. Tottenham, Chelsea are coming up in relatively short order. So getting some points on the board, you know, it's a 22-game season, so getting the points that they've already got there, Liverpool, it's just going to help massively with the challenges to come.
Yeah, and I think it helps the confidence to put behind them that West Ham game where they, you know, dominant and didn't win. They were dominant in this game for the most part and got the win, and I think that does wonders for it, because I think you can get into a rut of we're not getting our awards, or we can't finish, or we're not taking our chances. And you know, I know it's a home game against a side that's sort of in and around where you'd expect to be, but they're in the top 4 at the moment. They're above Arsenal, above Manchester United. I thought they played well, actually, in the game as well.
They're especially good.
It's a good start. It's a good start.
It's a really good start. I think they're especially good in the first 2/3 of the pitch, and I sometimes wondered if they're an attacker light when I watch them from time to time.
Yeah.
But they can phase themselves into that final third nicely, and so maybe then the attacker light, a bit of inspiration light. But it sort of bodes well for Tottenham and Chelsea away if they can keep looking after those first 2/3. You feel as though there's an opportunity for them if one does come to hurt either of those sides on the break.
Yeah, I think the system works well defensively, doesn't it? Having the 3 centre backs who I think have all been excellent whenever I've seen them this season, and they've got good wing backs. We've got quality, but what it does mean is that, like you say, maybe you are a little bit caught out if you haven't got lightning pace in the attacking areas, and they've got obviously Roman Hogg, who's a target striker. Yeah. It would benefit having someone off her I think at times, she does win a lot of headers and has a real physical presence about her. But that said, I thought Mel Lawley played really well in the game. Got absolutely brilliant goal. Proper bit of class, nutmeg and a smash into there. And then you've got who looks like an absolute steal of a signing in Herbinger, who just looks a level above sort of a lot of the players that you see on the pitch. But both for Liverpool and the opposition, you just has that extra bit of class about her, and really good finish to win it. City, isn't it, on Wednesday in the Conti Cup?
I think they'll use that for development more than
and so both sides. Yeah, you think there'll be changes in that, obviously. But yeah, like if you look at the start of the season, there might be a few regrets over the derby, of course, and then obviously the West Ham game. They've been pretty good, haven't they, in these first 5 games?
Everyone would have took 10 points from the first 5.
100%. And you wouldn't have thought you'd get them where they got them. They've beaten. I know Villa are having a nightmare time, but they were fancied at the start of the season. Arsenal, obviously, winning away there, and Leicester, decent side. So yeah, they've just got to win the ones that when the pressure is on or the onus is on them to win it.
Absolutely. The bigger picture for the men's side, Ian, City dropped points in 2 games last season against the bottom 10, home and away. Arsenal in 5, worth pointing that out. And this is the removal of wiggle room. I think you get to see it there in both those instances. City are not perfect, and they have already lost at Wolves this season. The perfection is possible, but exceptionally difficult. Liverpool, what I would say, nothing's changed in terms of the bigger picture with this Luton game. What changes, though, is the pressure that's on elsewhere in other matches for almost the entirety of the campaign, but certainly for the next 5 or 10 in the league. They've got to make sure they're winning the games they should win. They've got to.
Yeah. This is one that we should have won, obviously. I'm slightly reassured, and I came onto yesterday with a basic feeling of relief at the end of getting a point from where we were, because a loss would have seemed absolutely disastrous, despite there's only a point difference. We're still only 3 points behind City on the same games, and that's not a bad place to be. Obviously, tonight could change things. Spurs could go 5 points ahead of us. We could have been sitting second, a point behind City, which is where we should be. And we've had 3 chances this season to be further ahead. And we could easily be top of the league by now. We're good enough to be there. We just need to make sure that we're eradicating any issues. Obviously, you can't eradicate the Spurs issue, but Gravenberch not converting against Brighton, Darwin yesterday, these little moments are the moments that could really cost us the end of the season, if anything costs us. We just need to do the obvious. We need to be more clinical up top, and we do that. We can go all the way quite happily, obviously, but as you said, this takes a little bit of wiggle room out.
I mean, you watch your own games in a vacuum, don't you?
Yeah.
So name me 10 things that are wrong about this Liverpool squad. You all can. But I came into work this morning looking at, I was looking at the Darwin Núñez thing. Who's missed the most big chances in the league this season?
Haaland, yeah.
Haaland. You wouldn't think that though, because you don't see it. You don't show them a match a day. They only show you the ones that hit the back of the net. Now I'm not making the comparison between Núñez and Haaland. It's just that it's dead easy to micro-analyse your own squad. I mean, you can see the fact that with the tables the way it is, no team's perfect. The team that are top, Liverpool should have got 3 points from away from home. And you talk about City's records against the bottom 10 last year, that's fine. But then one line that you said to me last year is how many times they drop points away.
Yeah, so they only win 3 games against the top 10 away.
Exactly. So for every record like that, there's another one. And I fancy Liverpool in the bigger, maybe not City. The only game that scares me out of the top 10 going away for Liverpool is going to City. Every other away game, and they've proved that with the Newcastle results already. So, all right, I'm not excusing the result the other day, but I don't think they will repeat. Liverpool have eradicated, not totally, but things that have gone from Liverpool's game, and I know we need to hurry up. They don't look vulnerable. They've stopped conceding daft goals in the first 10 minutes, touch wood, and they've come from behind. All right, it's not perfect, but it's far better than what it was. And we'll only see if this affects us going forward when we play 3-4 more away games against teams in that area of the league.
The one thing that I took from yesterday, the reaction to it, was everyone's reaction who took it badly was taking it badly because they were looking upwards. No one's reaction took it badly because they were looking downwards, and that's where this Liverpool team is.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep going back to it. The title's one thing, but the bare minimum would get back in the top 4 or the top 5 if it's required. Get back in the Champions League, reassert that sort of feeling that we're in that top level of teams, which was lost last season. I don't see any. I won't say I don't see any jeopardy. I'm not worried about that this season. I think Liverpool are comfortably one of the best 4 teams in the league, and will show it.
The tragedy chanting aspect of it, Neil, I think it's important to say that these things are never fixed overnight. A lot of work was done. It's been done for 2 or 3 years behind the scenes that came to fruition over the summer, with people being able to talk about it a little bit more, with rules being changed, things being put in place. These things are never going to change overnight. Sides are still going to think. Some opposition supporters, and not all of them, for any team, and this is a really important detail, but some people are going to feel as though, no, this is fine, we're going to do this, without maybe even knowing that things have changed in the public eye. Whether or not it's decent has never changed, but whether or not in the public eye. But also it's noticeable that it feels like a corner's been turned in mainstream circles. It's interesting that Carragher calls it out during the broadcast. It's good that Jamie does that. But this stuff doesn't get fixed overnight. I think anyone who feels as though, well, what's been the point of it all, they're looking at it the wrong way as far as I'm concerned, because it'll take 3 or 4 more instances, whether we like it or not, for it to be crystal clear to every supporter in the land that people don't want you doing this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Carragher naming it in the broadcast, which I say is a big step, but you think of Forest fans unfurling that banner last week in the away end at Anfield, no to tragedy chanting, solidarity with survivors.
2 seasons running as well.
2 seasons running, just the fact that it's been talked about and it's being kept in people's vision. It's not a Luton fan. It's not a Luton thing. Sorry, Luton fans thing. It's not. I know Liverpool. There's some clubs that obviously the tragedy is more attached to, with Liverpool, Manchester United, Rangers. But it's not just a Liverpool thing. It's don't you? And it comes down to it, doesn't it, that every person, individual that becomes a crowd that sings it, and there was, listen, it's not everyone, but there was enough of a majority.
It was the majority of the noise.
Yeah, enough of a majority to make it heard, not just in the stadium, but to the TV viewers as well. Every person knows the line. They do know the line. If you were stood with someone and said, would you going to say that to them? Some people might, but majority would say, of course I'm not. So the idea that you keep it, you attach that level of shame to it and that sort of level of disgust to it, I think is right, and make it clear that just because you're in a football stadium, just because you're trying to hide behind banter, or you've got your little thing in the pocket that you say, well, what about that, or what about when that happened, or well, the reason we're singing it is because of that. You're embarrassing yourself, and I think the more people that actually point that out and make that clear in mainstream circles, in social media circles, in wherever, the better, because it is pathetic, really, isn't it? I think that's the bottom line of it. I know it's hurtful. It doesn't have that emotional feeling with me, because I don't have that to relate to, but it hurts people. From my perspective, I look at it and just think it's embarrassing and it's pathetic.
If they didn't have, I'm not talking about the Liverpool chants as well, but if they didn't have those connotations, they wouldn't get sung.
Of course.
Full stop.
No. Yeah.
Neil's spot on, and because there is no definition, and you mentioned the line there, and I think you're spot on, because they only do it because there is that line, and they go, well, I've got to get out, I've got this, I've got that, and it's public. The more discourse about it, whilst it might be uncomfortable, is essential, because it's only self-policing that's gonna drown this out, embarrass people into not doing it. We've seen that. We've seen it before. Look, you talk about the let's be honest, the Chelsea Rent Boy thing a couple of years ago, but with Liverpool.
Yeah.
At least
face it.
Yeah, face it, and it was dealt with. Should it have ever happened in the first place? No.
Yeah.
But it disappeared pretty quickly when people realised, hang on, this is not on. But it wasn't the FA or anything the Premier League said. It's because it was essentially self-policed by the people in that crowd.
And because
basically shithouses need to be embarrassed.
Yeah, and because Jurgen came out and said, look, don't do it.
Do it, yeah.
At which point everybody educates themselves. And I had the telly on quite low yesterday, so I didn't actually hear it at the time. I only heard it on the replays, but I heard Carragher shout it out. And obviously on Twitter you've got the, yeah, but what it's really about is...
It's a different tragedy. Is what a lot of people say.
Well, that makes it fine then.
It's not about that tragedy, it's about the other one.
Oh, and what they're doing now is, yeah, but what it's really about is it's about the Suarez T-shirts.
Yeah.
That's come out a couple of times this month. It's bollocks. Yeah. We know what it's about. Everybody knows what it's about, and you can't make excuses for it. And you're a team. I mean, if you're a Luton fan under 35, what relevance do you think any of this has to you and your club? I think I'm expressing this very badly now.
They did try. Obviously, what the pocket will be would be. We did sing. We couldn't play in Europe because of you, didn't we? That was one of their songs that they sung because they won the League Cup, didn't they, in that period. So that would be the sort of we have reason to
We're
sing.
Singing about this one.
I just look at it and I think you see these amazing moments in football from football fans where you see Cristiano Ronaldo being applauded at Anfield in the 7th minute. You see obviously the Bill Kenwright tribute that was paid recently, Bobby Charlton after. Not just Liverpool, around the country, Forest fans with their banner. It's just sad. It's sad that these things get as much credence, airtime, talking about as those things. It's like why sort of veer into that territory when it's just you can make Kenilworth Road a brilliant atmosphere, and you could have everyone sort of saying what incredible bunch of supporters you are. What support they gave their team. It's just sad the fact that we have to have these conversations about what is being sung during football matches.
As football fans, we have far more in common than we do to separate us, because there are so many other things we can be concentrating on. If we can take tribalism out of the game, to go slightly to the left, the Arteta thing. We're all anti-Arteta because it's kind of like, well, you didn't support us the other week. If we can take that tribalism out of the game as a whole, we can stand up for a lot more that needs to actually be acted on.
Last thing is the Toulouse game. It's a chance to get back on the bike, Andy. But it needs an eye on Sunday. Let's be clear about this. If we're going to say one thing about Bournemouth, I'm intrigued by who goes to Toulouse, and I'm also intrigued by what the changes will be around this. I wonder if the managers maybe got one eye on this as we throw a team out there, we see how they get on, and if they win forward is great, and if they don't, we'll sort it out when we get back to Anfield against Lask.
I think it all depends whether Mo Salah invokes the contract clause in that he's going to start every game. So we'll see on that. Look, I'm slightly different. I just want to get the game out the way and won, just so we can put that to bed. If we win with 3, right, and we finish top, is that correct?
Not absolutely nailed on.
Pretty much.
Almost
definitely through.
Yeah. So even to the point where maybe I'd take a strong team over there to try and get the game won. You always have ideas. Try and get the game won easily, comfortably. You were saying before, we'll get the game won by X, and then make your changes there with the eye on Sunday. Because I'd rather. With a game like this, I'd much rather win the game early than maybe start, maybe not your optimum 11, and then have to bring the lads on to win it towards the end. I mean, I feel free to disagree.
I just wondered if the lads might not travel, but then I said that against Bournemouth and Salah played 100 minutes. So I just wondered if the lads might not travel this time, if Van Dijk doesn't travel, if Salah doesn't travel.
No, I can't see them not. I can't see them not.
If they travel, I think there's an argument to play them and use them, but I think if they don't travel, I wonder about.
I think McAllister will play, won't he, if he's suspended for the weekend?
Yeah. Might play higher though. It might be that McAllister plays ahead of Endo.
And Endo, because obviously Curtis's fitness is one to look out for, isn't it? He missed the game with an issue. There's just a few awkward injuries, isn't there? There's just a few that you just wish they weren't injured. I mean, Bendo obviously was back on the bench, which is a positive, gives you a little bit more in there. You think Gakpo will start?
Do you think he might try something at left back with one of the 2 young lads?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I mean, they both featured for the 21s on Saturday, Chambers and Scanlon, and they've got a game on Tuesday against Barrow in the EFL Trophy.
Well, then think or two then.
So you'll see. We'll know a little bit. I think when that team comes out, James McConnell might be another one that would possibly.
I think McConnell might start, but then I thought he starts against Bournemouth. So again, what do I know?
Yeah, I mean,
Quansah.
I think Quansah will start. Yeah,
definitely. I think there's a case to start Quansah on merit in the game, as in rather than as a rotational thing, he's a first team player who deserves a start. He's been excellent. He was brilliant at Bournemouth. Obviously, he got Matip. I think the interesting one will be obviously how you rotate those players, the top quality forward and midfield players. How many of Szoboszlai, Salah, Nunes play? Do all of them play? Do you leave them in the reserve as the cavalry and hope you get the job done? It won't be an easy game. You saw it even last. As much as Liverpool ended up winning that game, it was a struggle. They had to battle through it, and it's not gonna be a case of going over there and rolling them over. I don't think they're gonna have to graft for it, and it's whether you bank on your bench to go and win it in the second half of the game, or whether you actually bank on grinding it out in the first half.
Going to win the game at Toulouse?
Yeah. That was the question. Going to win? Yeah.
Going to win the game at Toulouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be tight.
I think it'll be really tight. I think, and I think at some point he doesn't go hell for leather, but B keeps proving me wrong and going for it. I think at some point he thinks, there's a bit of cotton. Like I don't quite see the point of Virgil travelling.
Yeah,
you see what I mean. I don't see the point of Alisson travelling. If you're not going to use Alisson, don't send him. Do you know what I mean?
I think he has a foiler on Brentford, doesn't he? I think he has a respect for Brentford in terms of the physicality of it. So I think he'll want.
And they were always a hard game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the big question for Thursday is right back. Because Gomez has now played. That'll be Gomez's third game on the bounce if he plays right back. But are you going to play Trent at right back against Toulouse?
I don't. Just on that though as well. I don't see why you drop or swap Alisson out because it's not a fitness issue.
But I think it's a Kelleher. We've said to him he's going to get these games, so we give him these games because I'm very straight with my players and I tell them the truth.
Yeah, I think he's getting those games this season. You've seen it and.
So what happens if we get if we get to, I mean it's a wide discussion, but what happens if we get through and then we get one of the Champions League?
But I think it might be different. It might be that I think whatever he said, he might have said to Kelleher, group games and we see and we have a chat about it. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't think he's made a hard and fast.
He played the Carabao Cup final, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's the biggest indicator. I think that when he's committed to something, he plays. He would have played every game of that cup run apart from I think he was injured for one of them where Alisson played, possibly Arsenal in the semis. Yeah, I think he's the goalkeeper for this, and there's a few others. I think that in different ways. I don't think Kelleher's one of them, but there's a few others that you think, come on, and let's see if you've got it. Elliott might be one that you'd say. Obviously, Gakpo.
Yeah, I think they'll be in there. I think Liverpool do the business. All right, then thank you very much to Jordan, producing Andy, Neil and Ian. Green King, do come and see us on the US tour if you're in any of those locations that are Chicago, Vancouver, LA, Phoenix. I think that says Austin. It does say Austin, I should know this by now. And Atlanta. Listen, the handwriting's one thing, the results are another. Liverpool, all they've done is remove the wiggle room. Nothing else has changed.